Do you like queuing? Do you like waiting in line? It's a very English thing to do, isn't it? Waiting in line to be served so that you are the next person and you're in a queue and you shuffle along and then you get to the front and it's my turn. And then, somebody pushes in just at the last minute. Oi, hang on a minute, mate. Hang on a minute. I was here first. I think that some nations don't get queuing. But I think it's a very English thing. We queue for buses, we queue at the post office, we queue at the petrol stations when they're busy, and we wait in line and we moan and groan and grumble and complain, but we don't say anything out loud unless, of course, there's something to irritate the equilibrium, like someone pushing in and shoving. Well, I was here, mate, but I went over there. And then if somebody's in the queue and they leave the queue and then they come back and go, well, I was here, I just went for a cup of tea. It's like, well, hang on a minute, mate. You've left your place in the queue. Go back to the end. Start again. There's no fixed rules on queuing. It's just that we kind of know what they are. There's no bit of paper written down with, here are the rules to a queue, and this is what you do. And if you break the rules, you go straight to the back. But we know exactly what the rules are in our own head, how you do it. We queue to go through the passport control. We queue at the supermarket, and sometimes we'll go, do you know what, that queue's going quicker than us. We'll take all our shopping and we'll go into that queue instead, and then we'll do it. People are queuing at the moment to go and see the Queen lying in state, and it's several days, and people have been camping out all night. And I'm curious whether that's something you intend to do or are doing. You're possibly there right now, queuing away, and you're keeping yourself amused with your phone or tablet that's charged up. Of course, there's probably nowhere to charge your phone after a few days, so you may be being a bit conservative on your on what you watch and how long things are. I completely understand that, and you need your phones to be alive. Or maybe you've done it. You've come back from the queue whenever you watch this, because you could watch this in 6 months' time and say, actually, do you know what, I did that. Or maybe you've queued for seeing somebody else lying in state, like when Prince Philip left. Or if you're old enough, Winston Churchill. Perhaps you were one of those. I don't know. It does seem, though, however, that these queues which have started to build up to see such a figure as the Queen lying in state is going to be supplied with loos at various points along the queue. And I guess food suppliers and what have you will come along. The old muffin man will be going up and down. Muffins! Muffins! Get your lovely muffins here. And all the concessions will probably turn up with bacon sandwiches and all those sort of bits and bobs. I imagine, I don't know, I imagine that when you've got a large body of people, as indeed there will be and there is going to be, that the governments or the council or whoever it is who's responsible will try and ensure that there is something. Nobody wants people to be discreetly relieving themselves in the gutter as they shuffle forward so that the next person has to stand in it. It must be pretty awful. And as is typical at these sort of times, it rained last night. And no doubt these people are going to be getting wet and uncomfortable. I suppose there won't be mobile shower units. Imagine if you had a mobile shower unit that you could go, do you mind holding my place? I'm just going to go and have a shower. And the person going, well, we don't mind you doing that at all, because actually you stink. And the quicker you get in that shower and come back. Also, could you just change your clothes as well? Because you've been in the queue now for 3 days and it's a little bit too much. Are you somebody who can queue? Will you? I understand most of these people will be standing, and they will be standing in through the night. I don't think I could do it. I would love to be one of the people who went past the Queen as she was lying in state and be able to go relatively near the coffin. I don't think you're actually allowed to touch the coffin. I imagine it'll all be roped off. But to be honest, I just don't think I could do 3 or 4 days of queuing to do it. I perhaps am not worthy a person to do that. Maybe you are, and I would be fascinated. What is the longest queue that you've ever been in, and what was it like? There is a thing, I mean, sometimes, of course, we queue on the motorways when we're trying to get places. There's been a major accident somewhere up ahead, and something has happened, and you're in the vehicle, and you've no idea. And then rumours start coming down, it'll be 4 hours before it's cleared. I remember once at the Dartford Tunnel, trying to get across the Dartford Tunnel, and just before, there was nowhere to go. You can't suddenly get onto the hard shoulder, and you can see civilization down on the left-hand side, but you just can't get there. And the irony is, it's just 100 yards. There are people's houses, and it's all looking very nice, and there's people in the gardens. You just can't get to it because of these reservation and that sort of little crash barrier thing. And then there's perhaps a bit of a slope away, and there's nothing you can do. You can't turn round, you can't get across to the other lane. You're stuck. And I remember being stuck there for about 3 hours, and I was on my way to a gig back in the days when I used to do gigs. And fortunately for me, I was actually going to the hotel because the gig started the following day. So I was only going to be late to the hotel I was staying at. So I was able to call ahead and say, oh, well, look, what time is the latest you serve food? Because I'm stuck in a traffic jam. I'm 3 hours later than I thought I would be. And they said, no, it's all right. We'll be serving food to whatever time it was. I was like, right, okay, well, I'll just buy some sandwiches or something when I am free. Of course, it wouldn't be so bad now in my van. I was in a car then. In my van, of course, I carry a little bit of food and I can have hot coffee and stuff. And you could just go, right, okay, we're stuck here for 3 hours. I'll open up the van. I could sell some coffee to people around. Isn't it funny, people, in an ordinary queue that you're only there for a few minutes, you barely talk to anybody, or if you do, and I do try to talk to people because I do like having a sort of brief, like, oh, this is a bit much, and it's 3 hours, can you imagine it? But over time, people get out their car, they spill out their car, they start having a chat with someone and saying, I like your alloy wheels, mate. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I was given them by a friend of mine. Oh, they're very nice, and I like the trim on that. And oh, is it a super duper this, that, that's... To be honest, don't ask me questions about the, engines and things and sizes like that. I don't know. I just drive the thing. It's a lovely thing. I love it. But you do start to have these conversations, don't you? I would be fascinated, really fascinated. It would be a great sort of thing for a film, and no doubt somebody's already done it. If you're in a queue and you're a single person and you're in a queue and the next car is this another single person, and you basically ended up, after being stuck in a queue for an hour or so, having a chat with the person next to you and finding that they are your dream person. Wouldn't that be amazing? You're stuck in this queue and you say a bloke looks across and there's a lovely lady, and they fall in love and then they get married and they have kids, and all because of the coincidence of the two cars meeting. It must happen, mustn't it? Must happen. It's that sort of fairy tale thing. Doesn't happen with me. Well, I'm very happy at the moment, of course. But in the past, when I was stuck there, no, just some greasy old lorry drivers. No disrespect to lorry drivers, but I just didn't fancy you, to be honest with you. But it didn't really happen on those occasions. Never really happens. But are you somebody who gets stuck in a queue? What is the most weirdest thing you've done in a queue? Have you managed to sort of extract yourself from the queue and say, look, I'm going to go to that cafe and have a cup of tea for half an hour, and then I'll come back and be here, just assume that I am. Do the old Arthur Dent thing where he lies down in front of the JCB that's about to bulldoze his house in protest against it, and he says, actually, look, could you just take it as read that I'm here whilst I nip away? And of course, Mr. Dent, no problem, Mr. Dent. So he goes off and they knock his house down. But then it didn't really matter because the Vogons came and destroyed the Earth in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, as I'm sure you're well aware. But yes, queues. Would you be in that queue? I'd be fascinated. And if you got chatting with people, and did you ever share phone numbers? How did it go? Or was there bad things happening in the queue? Did you get stuck behind somebody who was very obnoxious? Maybe arguments started, or violence, or did you see anything really grim in a queue? I'd be interested to know. Queues, I think, are weird old things, and not every nationality sort of gets it, do they? Which, as I said at the beginning, it's very English to be in a queue, and you can get very out of sorts if somebody seems to abuse that sense of the sense of queuing, of which there are no rules. People from perhaps other countries who don't understand it, and in their country they don't queue, they just sort of come in en masse and just, like, basically beat each other up to get to the front and go, yeah, mate, yeah, no, it's me, mate. What happens then? This is where, different customs and traditions, which is not legislated for, happen. And then what happens? Do the police come in and go, sorry, mate, you've got to get to the back of the queue? We don't understand what queues are. It'd be fascinating to know. So let me know what you do in a queue. Would you queue up for days on end to do something? I know I used to juggle and unicycle and fire eat and ride instead of unicycle, walk on stilts and walk on a slack rope and on a big round globe and juggle at the same time and all this sort of stuff. And I used to entertain at somewhere called Chessington World of Adventures, which is used to be a zoo, but it's now very much one of these sort of playgrounds of fun, I guess. One of these, what do you call it? It's an adventure park, I guess, with rides, big rides and thrilling rides. It used to have animals in. I'm not sure whether it does. Anyway, I used to go there as an entertainer and entertain the queue lines. So people, it was bizarre. On bank holidays, people would queue 2 hours for a 2-minute ride. Just let that sink in. They would queue 2 hours, shuffling along for a 2-minute ride on some whirly thing, whatever it was. And we were there paid as entertainers to try and keep them amused so they didn't get too disgruntled as they shuffled along, slowly getting closer and closer to the actual ride. And the funny thing about it was, in the end, I was started to question them and say, why did you come on a bank holiday? Did you not think that the world and his brother would also come on the bank holiday and that there would be queues? I didn't really think about that. And I thought, how many people have actually thought, they go to these places on bank holidays when these places are open, and then they're complaining. It's like, oh, we've only gone on 3 rides and we've been here 6 hours. Oh, yeah, did you queue for 2 hours on each ride? It's like, my God, really? If you came in the week, even in the summer holidays or during the half term, if you came in the week, fewer people are here. Fewer people, and you could get on the ride within 20 minutes. It's you could do loads and loads of riding. You paid a huge amount of money to come in here in the first place, and all the rest of it. I don't know what it's like now. It may well have been improved. I can only tell you what it was like back in my time, and that's what it was. And half my act, you're juggling there, and then you would just be going, really? 2 hours for 2 minutes? And of course, you didn't want to tell them that as a performer there, we could just go on the rides when they tested them out in the morning, because they would always test the rides to make sure they were safe and working, and they would put people on it, just to try it out. To be honest, it's not my thing, so I never went on any of these rides. I couldn't, I didn't want to be shocked or not have G-forces flying about and my hair frizzed up by the rest of it, or going through great troughs of water and all of that. I just went there to do the job, get on with it, and then go home and earn an honest penny or two. But yes, if you've been in a queue, I want to know your queue stories. Queue up in the comments to let me know your queues, and that would be lovely. Right, let's move on then to the comments on recent videos. And looking here, recent video is about conversations and chatting with people, and let's find out what other people think. Sean Ginley says, it's a southern thing. People chat in the street up north all the time. Well, I'm very pleased to admit they always say they're more friendly up north, which is lovely. Chuckle Vision says, I'm a dog walker, and I find that other dog owners and walkers are far more polite and friendly and chatty, primarily because of their shared interest in dogs. And I do get that, of course. But I do find that when I'm out and about, generally, people seem to start chatting to me. My mother always said it's because I have a friendly, approachable face. Well, I hope that you do have a friendly, approachable face. He goes on, or she goes on, to say, funny story, Richard, I was in a supermarket shopping a couple of years ago, and I was in the pet aisle, minding my own business, as you do, looking for some dog chews and for 2 of my pooches. When I heard a softly spoken voice behind me, And I looked up and there was a woman chatting to me, so I politely engaged with her in conversation. About 2 or 3 minutes into the conversation, another lady was walking by. She must have been listening to our conversation because she began to join in. And then, about a minute later, believe it or not, a third woman, sidled past and began to join in the conversation. My mother, he says, happened to be out shopping with me on this occasion and was flabbergasted and told me off for keeping her waiting. So I had to explain. I didn't start the conversation, and I didn't want to be disrespectful to the lovely ladies who felt compelled to start chatting to me. Hasten to add, he says, this has happened on numerous occasions, and I really love having random conversations with strangers. Well done to you. Ingram Cars says, when I'm out walking on my own, people tend to ignore me. But if I'm with my dog, people say hello. It is funny, isn't it? It's almost as if the dog is really an excuse to have engagement with people. And I wonder, in this world of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, that we've almost forgotten the general art of conversation, and we need something, an in, so that we're desperate actually to speak to a real person. He carries on and says, or at least they say hello to my dog. Ah, yes. Out in the Outer Hebrides, here we go. Simon loves the Outer Hebrides. He gave me a book the other day, which I would love to go and have a look at. He says, locals wave at you as you drive by. They do that on the river and the canals. There's a sort of unspoken thing that you wave at somebody. It's like, hello, yes, I'm on a boat too. It's like, yes, I can see that. I can see you're on a boat. No need to tell me. I can see it. But I don't know. It's some weird friendly acknowledgement. Louise Lage, beg your pardon, says, real one-to-one conversation for me is wonderful. I had an hour-long discussion with a total stranger in an hour's conversation in front of a butcher's counter when I noticed her buying some soup bones. Soup bones, eh? They that are bones from a soup. That's a particular, probably the soup monster, isn't it? Is it not Bagpuss? The Clangers, the soup monster. Anyway, for broth, we started chatting, she says, and the conversation evolved into talk about health, diet, the quality of food, and, of course, the benefits of bone broth in healing the gut. Poor old gut. So we talked about how important diet is, and she commented that she was off to a friend in a hospital who had just had a triple bypassed. I nearly read that as a tripe, then talking of bone broth and stuff, but triple bypass, some nourishing bone broth. Not quite sure what you're on about there, but half an hour later we exchanged phone numbers, but sadly say I lost hers among my shopping when I got home and never heard from her again. What a shame. Shirley says, I do enjoy conversation. I talk to strangers, have a nice chat yesterday with a lady at the bus stop. I told her some history of the land where her house had been built on. She told me something about that she had originally come from. 10-minute chat, most enjoyable. It's how we do it, isn't it? It's how the world passes by, which is very nice. New Start says another good chinwag topic. Thank you very much. Mr. Mocky says, after working nights for many years, my body clock is shot to bits. I should think it is. Working nights is not a great thing for the body. But, I know we all have to do it on occasions. I've worked nights before myself as a security guard many, many years ago, walking around the Heidelberg building in Brentford, I think it was, where these old printing machines used to be, patent printing machines, the old type press. The types, not typeset. They were, what did you call it? The type that you put in, and the roller platen printers. I think that's what it is. Heidelberg. And I had to go around with one of these weird old-fashioned clocks at night time for a 12-hour shift and make sure there was no burglaries and everything was safe. So it's not easy. Anyway, enough of me. He says, I still suffer from sleeping issues. Oh, yes, so this is on the one where we're talking about, do you get a good night's sleep? Why can't I sleep? I have to go to bed, he says, at the same time each night, and I will go to sleep. But if anything wakes me, that's it. I'm up for the rest of the night. My mind thinks it's time to get on the go. No matter if I've had 2 hours sleep before being woken or 5. Yes, it's funny how the mind can work like that. I find that if I wake up, I have to go down and, as I said before, have a cup of tea and do something like that. Rodney Thompson says, real life beats virtual life every time. I think you're right. Absolutely, the real world is so much better. I never really understand, and I have played games in the long distance past when they first came out, played a game called Half-Life, and then they got Half-Life 2. And then I sort of began to lose interest. I used the original one, but I realized it was eating so much of my time, one could get addicted to this, and I gave up and I never played any other games. And I don't play games on the computer because it's all virtual. I don't really understand it. I don't understand the fad for virtual reality either, where you put something on and you substitute a different world. This world is so full of amazing beauties. I mean, I know humans, are trying to destroy it left, right, and centre, of course, but the real world, the world of nature and stuff, there's so many incredible things to look at and feel and sense and smell in every, all the senses and stuff, that I can't understand. Anything man-made is just such a pale imitation. Why would you want to do it? But people do. And finally, Michael Wortley says, this is in Hey, I Want to Word With You. He says, God's word says, Richard, 2 Timothy, verse 3, there will be no natural affection, part of the last days of this evil system. No idea what that means. This is where sometimes, people quote the Bible or version of the Bible or whatever, and I have absolute, quoting a phrase out of context, presumably. It's like if I was to quote you a line out of Dickens or something, it might not have any relevance whatsoever. So I don't really know. No disrespect to you, Michael, and I appreciate you doing it, but what does it mean? What does that mean? There will be no natural affection, part of the last days of this evil system. What evil system? And why won't there be any natural affection? And what kind of affection are you talking about? It is beyond me, I'm afraid, gentle viewer. But thank you very much for doing the viewing. I very much appreciate it. It's been lovely to talk to you. So if you're somebody who loves to queue, and you've had a queuing story, whilst you were queuing, perhaps you queued by next to somebody famous, and there you are, and you're able to have a chat with them and become friends with somebody in the queue next to you. It'd be interested to know. Let me know, and we will have a look at your comments on the next one. Till then, bye-bye.